Well folks, today we're here at Shoalcliff. We're talking about the islands behind me in the bay, Moreton Island and Stradbroke Island, and the rock on those islands, in particularly Point Lookout and Cape Moreton, purely because there's something out there that's quite important to Brisbane. It's called rhyolite. Brisbane's got this amazing rock called rhyolitic tuff, or it's called welded rhyolitic ignimbrite, otherwise known as the Brisbane Tuff. We're going to know rhyolite. The Capes have got it. The Guardians of Moreton Bay. Let's have a closer look at it. The geology is quite interesting. So is the history. We'll look at both. So, you know, if you dig the vibe, like and subscribe, and you know what I'm going to say. Let's rock before I walk into the ocean. Hey folks, well, we just flew across Brisbane and Peel Island in the bay. This southern little bit here there's also outcroppings of these volcanic rocks here, but the main outcrop is obviously Point Lookout here. This is rhyolite with some sedimentary rocks sitting on top of it. We'll have a look at that in detail. Around the corner here you got these rocks in the ocean, which are reefs. They are also part of that same formation. They're hard, that's why they're still there. And if we head up now to Cape Moreton, Moreton Island's a gorgeous bit of gear, but it is all sand, apart from this. That red formation to the south there, we'll have a look at that in detail. You've got 200 million years of geology right there. We'll have a good look through that. Honeymoon Bay around the corner here, just a beautiful spot. It really is. All sand at the back there. The whole island apart from here is sand. Unlike Stradbroke, Dunwich is actually a piece of rock. Offshore you've got Flinders Reef, and under the water there's a few other structures we will have a look at. Pull back here, there's the continental shelf. We'll just pull back, show you the structure. Let's have a look at the detail. Hey Geo Nerds, here we are dropping in from the height of one of Electric Jesus' satellites. And we're just going to drop in. This is Moreton Island, of course, Cape Moreton at the tip there, just to give you some context of how these islands put together. Now, the rock at Cape Moreton is the only rock on Moreton Island. Stradbroke has rock at Point Lookout and just back from Point Lookout, and Dunwich is also rock. I believe that's a Moreton Bay island that's been enclosed by Stradbroke. And if we pull down, there's actually some rock just down here as well, just there. A very interesting rock. Then you've got Jumping Pin Bar there. Then there's South Stradbroke Island. That was one island up until the 1890s. And then you have the South Passage. So there's some interesting points about the South Passage as well. So I thought I'd put all that in context before we start looking at the geology. So folks, on the 17th of May 1770, Captain James Cook was going past Queensland, naming Cape Moreton, the Glasshouse Mountains, Point Danger, all the good stuff. And it's interesting that he did not draw a Southport Passage, or did he draw the southern end of Moreton Island? This is Matthew Flinders. He didn't draw a South Passage either on both of his maps. And so here's James Cook, and he drew some reefs halfway down Stradbroke Island, and so did Flinders. But guess what? They're not there. They don't exist in the real world. Here's a modern marine chart of South Stradbroke and North Stradbroke Island. There's no reefs off that island at all. Nothing. So very interesting. Things obviously changed. Now, this is John Oxley. He came through here quite a bit later in 1823, and this is his map of the Risa River and Moreton Bay. Here's Moreton Bay. But we don't need much conjecture, because lucky for us, Channel 7's cameras was there when he came ashore.
Pamphlett, Parsons and Finnegan got shipwrecked while they were in...
The Castaways' 9-month ordeal was over.
Oh, Thomas Pamphlett. John Oxley.
Banded Aboriginal canoe on the far bank.
I think I can swim across and get it.
Being the only one swimmer, it fell to Pamphlett to cross the creek to retrieve the boat, giving the three passage across the river to Long.
Well, there you go, folks. It's nice to see a familiar face in history. Anyway, this map is from about the 1840s, and as you can see, they've fleshed out their knowledge of Moreton Bay to some degree. However, of course, Stradbroke Island is still one island. We hadn't blown it in half. That wasn't until the late 1890s, and that's a bit harsh. We might have damaged it and a cyclone tore it in half, but anyway, it's the way it is. If you want to know how that feels, ask Bribey Island. So it's time to get into the geology, so let's do it. You know what I'm going to say? Let's go. So folks, I've chosen this map because it gives you a fairly satellite eye view of the ocean floor in and around the two Guardians of Moreton Bay, Point Lookout and Cape Moreton. And here we are. These are the list of the dive sites off our islands, and of course they follow the geology. Divers don't want to dive on sand, they're diving on rock. And here it is here. You can see it in this LiDAR of the ocean floor. You can see the rock bars heading to the north, Flinders Reef, etc. And they're all the same formations, they're all the same age. Well, folks, before we get into the bay, we need to talk about the structure under our feet in the general area. Now, right down the bottom, here's a great diagram. Right down the bottom here, we have the Narranlee Fernvale beds. These are the Brisbane phyllites, all of these shales and ardenites that make up most of Brisbane, but not all of it. This stuff is old. It's also really thick. There's 8 kilometres of this stuff under our feet, right, a really lot of it. Above that, we have the early Triassics. The Brisbane Tuff is there, the rhyolitic tuff that covers all through the area of Kangaroo Point, Story Ridge, right through to the north and some way down to the south. Then on top of that, we have our sedimentary basins. We have the Ipswich Basin, which sits under 2 more sedimentary basins. To the west, we have the Clarence Moreton Basin, and to the north, we have the Nambour Basin. And all 3 of these are involved in the geology of the Guardians of Moreton Bay, which is why this diagram's up here. Now, I draw your attention to really only 3 things on this chart, and freeze this chart and just wander through it. It's really interesting. If you need one, email me. I'll send you an image over. But you should be able to grab one if you've got a decent TV. So the red bit, which stands out, is the Ipswich coal measures. You will see these mentioned all over Brisbane. Well, they're in Moreton Bay as well. They're under Moreton Bay, actually. Above that, you'll see an area called the Bundamba group. And in there, one of the subgroups is the Woogaroo group. Now, Woogaroo is the Aboriginal word for the area around Wacol, Woogaroo Creek, etc. out there. Now, that Woogaroo group is on Moreton Island. So we're going to have a very close look at that. But to get the layers in for you, out at Moreton Island, at Cape Moreton, you've got the Brisbane Tuff. Under that, you've got some rhyolite. So it's sitting on top of rhyolite. Above that, you've got the Ipswich coal measures, and you've even got some Woogaroo on top of the Woogaroo on top of that at Cape Moreton. And at Stradbroke Island, at Point Lookout, you've got a similar thing. You have this very old rhyolite, although there's no tuff down there, not that I could see. And on top of that, you've got some of the more modern Ipswich coal measures sitting on top of those volcanics. So that doesn't just happen there. It goes right under the bay, and I suspect it goes in a fairly straight line, which we've seen in some of those diagrams, right up the bay, where these Ipswich coal measures have been bent and buckled up. And they exist, and they're very visible in the cliffs of Moreton Island and, of course, the cliffs of Point Lookout. Well, here we are having a look at the geology of Cape Moreton. Now, all that light green stuff, that's just sand. We'll ignore that for now. This is the Woogaroo Group. This is a sedimentary formation that is part of the Bundamba Group, which is actually part of the Clarence Moreton Basin. Yeah, all the way up here. We'll look into that. But there it is, sandstones, shales, and beautiful looking rock, by the way. And it is early Jurassic or late Triassic in age. And it's where it should be. It's on the top. It's the youngest rocks here. We don't count the sand. This is the interesting bit. I find it interesting. This is Brisbane Tuff sitting here. Now, we know Brisbane Tuff from obviously the Kangaroo Point Cliffs and all the other places in Brisbane. Now, it is about 226 million years. It's middle Triassic. So it's underneath it where it should be. And I'll just draw the extent of this because there's a bit more of it than you saw in that last diagram here. At the base of the cliffs and down near Cape Cliff, there is the Tuff. Amazing stuff. Now, there's another rock which is under this, and I'll just draw it here because it's easier to see. This is rhyolite. Now, this is probably the rhyolite that Tuff came from, frankly. And here it is. There's a bit more of it than that. I'll just zoom back and I'll do you another quick diagram of it. There's quite a bit more of it, in fact. Right, so now it's probably underneath all of that Woogaroo stuff as well, and it's probably underneath the Tuff because it's older rocks on the bottom, younger rocks on the top, mostly, usually. In this case, I would believe that's true. And this stuff, of course, is older. Now, the maps call this the Ipswich coal measures. It can't be. The Ipswich coal measures didn't exist when this rock came down. They weren't there. So that's a bit of an interesting turn up. So next time you look at this video of Cape Moreton, you might see it a couple more times yet. You're going to see it in a whole new light. Look at all that sedimentary rock sitting on top. You can see the skirt of rhyolite just coming out of the water. If you look carefully, you can see the junction where the rhyolite joins to the tuff. There's a big piece of tuff right there on that cliff. And right at the end there, where all that red rock is, that's all beautiful rhyolite sitting in the water. And that red rock is all sedimentary rock. I can't explain the red. It's beyond my capabilities. But if we look at the northern end, you can now see those beautiful sedimentary sandstones on top there. Well, they look a lot like white rock, don't they? Because they're not too different. And you can see how the blocks of sandstone are breaking up in their usual fashion. And these bits of cave and stuff are falling out. And when you look at the back of the cave, it makes perfect sense. So let's have a look at Point Lookout. Well, folks, here we have the geology of Stradbroke Island. Those dark green blotches are all rhyolite. Everything else you see is sand. So that's the rock. It's not the only rock on Stradbroke Island. We will have a look at that. There is other rock, but it's down south. So we're looking at Point Lookout now, and this is, according to the geology maps, it's all rhyolite. The geology maps call this being part of the Ipswich coal measures. I think it's older than that. I really do. So I would put it at the same age as the rhyolite on Moreton Island because it's the same rock. And it's somewhere around here. Let's not get too carried away with years. So I'll put up a closer view of it. So here it is here. So you can see that it shows no other rock other than rhyolite. And it's described as rhyolite, basalt, and breccia. Now, this is rhyolite. This is obviously on, this is also on Stradbroke. This is obviously rhyolite. You can see the way it is. This, of course, in the gorge is definitely rhyolite. You can see it all the way up. It's slightly different where the seawater hits it. This is also rhyolite. This is from the other direction. You can see it's tilting away from us, so it's been tipped. But this, I question. It might be rhyolite, might be sandstone. And this looks a lot like sandstone to me. A lot like sandstone. There's no sandstone here. I think there's a piece of the Woogaroo group sitting on top of these cliffs, right up the top area. Tiny piece of the Woogaroo group. So anyway, you wouldn't be surprised. It's like that on Moreton Island. Why wouldn't it be the same here? Now let's have a little look at the other rock on Stradbroke Island, because it is quite interesting. Well, the other rock on Stradbroke Island is down here at Dunwich, which is part of the Woogaroo group, so it's sandstones and shales. And I think Dunwich is actually an island because most of the islands in southern Moreton Bay are made out of primarily this same rock from this same group. So I think it's an island that's been enclosed by sand. Dunwich has another claim to fame. It's got a thorium hotspot on it. This green flash here is a fairly heavy concentration of radioactivity coming from thorium, and it comes from this. In this black sand is monzonite, which is a mineral that contains thorium. There is some more rock down here, a little tiny sliver of greenstone, and here it is. This is what it looks like. This is the Roxburgh greenstone. Now, it's only a tiny piece opposite the Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron there, but why is it amazing? Well, here it is down here, and it actually comes from way the buggery up here at Roxburgh, near Narangba. How, I do not know. I'll mention this. It's not my kind of rock. It's called coffee rock. This is on Stradbroke. This is it. This is the amazing Nagala rocks up on Gari or Fraser Island. Spent many times up here. Lovely times. There it is. Coffee rock. It's actually it's cemented by acids from the organic material mixing with iron, and it drives it together as a very, very immature sandstone. Mostly you can break this up with your fingers. The Earth, particularly our bit back in the Triassic. Look how far inland our little Moreton and Stradbroke Guardian coastline is. Probably a couple of 100 kilometres inland. So we're probably looking at some fairly serious rhyolitic volcanic activity. Here's the Jurassic. This is the time of the Ipswich coal deposits, etc. This is still a very long way inland. So, and by now, this volcanism was 100 million years old. So there we go. Well, folks, we've been talking about the sedimentary basins under Brisbane, and there are three. This is the Ipswich Basin in purple. That's where it's traditionally drawn, but I don't agree with that. I think it goes right the way out here. And I think that because of the rocks at Cape Moreton are part of the Ipswich coal measures, which are in this basin. Now, there's two other basins, the Nambour Basin, shown here in light green at the top, and the Clarence Basin, shown here in a darker green at the bottom. Now, this map is also obviously wrong. I don't know why they draw it, because there are rocks from the Clarence Basin on Cape Moreton. So here's another way that they draw these basins. So you can see the Clarence Moreton Basin is huge. We'll have a look at a bigger image of this later on, but it goes way to the west and way down south, and it just comes down into Brisbane. It's on top of the Ipswich Basin. This never existed. The Ipswich Basin butting against the Nambour Basin doesn't happen. The Ipswich Basin goes under the Nambour Basin. So here's the Clarence Moreton Basin now. It's a huge basin. Comes from way down south of Grafton all the way north, up right into Brisbane, up into Gatton and nearly to Toowoomba. Now, the Brisbane bit's kind of important, but this is wrong. It does not do this because the rocks of the Woogaroo group are part of this basin, and they're all over the north side of Brisbane. They're at Shorncliffe and they're at Cape Moreton. They're also through all of the southern Moreton Bay Islands. This can't be right. So I'm going to redraw this. I think it looks more like this, and frankly it probably goes right out onto the continental shelf. And I suspect that Oh, I know the sandstones on the top of Moreton, Cape Moreton, are definitely part of this Clarence Moreton group. And Shawcliffe, they've got a video coming up on Shawcliffe. It's obvious that these are also part of this group. So this is where this basin extends to, in Brisbane. So people, we need to talk about the Moreton Island Lighthouse, or the Cape Moreton Lighthouse. It's an old lighthouse, 1857. It's older than Queensland. The top bit's not quite as old as the bottom bit, but it is quarried out of stone from the island, so it's worth talking about. There's the quarry down at the base of the hill where they quarried the stone, and here it is on the LiDAR. I'll put a ring around it for you there. So the lighthouse itself is just fantastic. They had to build it there because obviously the Southern Passage is pretty dangerous. They lost quite a few lives down there. They wanted to encourage ships to take the northern entrance to Moreton Bay, and there it was. And it's sitting on sandstone, as you can see. Beautiful white sandstone. Now, where have we seen that before, eh? Ripley, White Rock, lots of it. And you can see the shales under it. Some of that shale, when you crush it in your hand, it smells a bit oily, so it's got a bit of hydrocarbon in it from somewhere. And there's the typical Ripley-looking sandstone there as well. And it's just a gorgeous bit of gear. And now you've got the geology, because you've listened to the rest of the video. You'll never look at this place the same again. I think it's awesome. It really is. Just a bit hard to get to, and it's expensive to get to. Let's have one last look at Straddy while we're here. Well, folks, rhyolite, lots of it. That little bit with the around the corner there is called South Head. That's got the South Headland. That's got the Surf Lifesaving Club on it. That big lump of rock in the front's called Whale Rock. Strange enough, quite a few Aboriginal legends about that. Didn't really fit in this video though. It's a piece of the rhyolite that's just cracked off at some stage. The surf pounding it. Rhyolite's a very hard rock, but nothing's impervious to the ocean or water. This is the gorge, as it's known. And it is really nice. I'd use the words gorgeous, but you know. And you can see this rhyolite is everywhere, but it's got, in places, it's got some like cooling formations in it, but not many. Not like the stuff down the coast, that's for sure. So it cooled fairly quickly, I would think, whenever it did come down. Great access to this site, by the way. If you want to go and visit it, Point Lookout, great access. You can walk all around it, great walkways. You don't need to be a mountain climber. You don't need to be a gizmo with a bag of ropes to get up and down this place. You can. It's really very nice. As you can see here, on a nice day, there's lots of people there, though. Stradbroke's a little easier to get to than Moreton. It's a little cheaper. You can take your car over there and drive around, although it's not that much cheaper if you take your car. But anyway, it's a nice place. I prefer it on a day like this when there's a bit of surf running. It's absolutely fantastic. Good fishing in certain places. You've got to be a bit careful. Fished on rocks. No fish is worth dying for. And people do all the time. So there you go. Look at that rhyolite. Just beautiful. Now, it cracks, but it doesn't crack like sandstone. So that stuff up top, I don't know. Maybe it's rhyolite. Maybe it isn't. Now, what we might do is just take a few more minutes to have a look at the reefs off these islands, because they are also, I believe, made out of rhyolite. So let's examine them just for a few minutes. Well, folks, this is one of the reefs off Stradbroke. Pretty obvious that's made out of rhyolite. Well, it's got flat rock or round rock. I can't remember which one it is. You certainly don't want to bump into it in your boat at night. This is off Moreton. This is called Flinders Reef. This is a major dive site up there, and it's not a good fishing spot because you're not allowed to fish there. But even so, as you can see, this is also a great big piece of rhyolite out in the middle of the ocean. And it most certainly is a great place for marine life to live, but not good if you bump into it in your boat. So as you can see, folks, in the LiDAR, there is a line of reefs that run absolutely north-south. These are all rhyolite reefs, all rhyolite. So this is rhyolite from below the Ipswich coal measures, way out here. Well, a few years ago, a mate of mine was on holidays over there, and his young fella decided to cut loose with his FPV drone at, of course, Point Lookout. So we're going to get the best view of this rhyolite you're ever going to see. Maybe not. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. We've tried to hit the Guardians of Moreton Bay. These two capes have guarded this bay for millennia. And ever since that the colonialists have been here, it's been a source of, obviously, at times, tragedy. We've lost many lives in that southern passage in particular. Is terrible. But anyway, that's it. More coming on Shorncliffe. I'm going to do something on the rocks of Shorncliffe, the Woogaroo group. Very interesting. I was down there shooting a little bit just the other day, and you're going to see a little bit in the outro. So anyway, let's get on with it and put away the sick bag. Well, folks, there you go. You've seen the Guardians of Moreton Bay. I'm still at Shorncliffe. I haven't left yet. I can't help it. The rocks are too nice. The Guardians of Moreton Bay. Point Lookout. Cape Cliff. Cape Moreton and North Point. Amazing places. I've been to Moreton Island a few years ago, quite a few years ago. I'd go back again, but it's quite an expensive place to get to. But the rocks, they ask a lot of questions. They do ask a lot of questions. Got to watch from here, but there's a few girlies in the way. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, tell your friends. If you dig the vibe, like and subscribe. And you know what I'm going to say. Keep rocking, because T-Rex is out. Hey, is that my boat?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
I am a little disappointed.
He is the chosen one!